Hi, welcome back to the City Morning Show, everyone. We're up for our first discussion of the day, Kai.
Yeah, welcome back. And, you know, women play a pivotal role to bring changes in world history. Like men, women's roles in various fields, including technology, has succeeded in inspiring and catalyzing enthusiasm for other women in their respective work, even for the younger generation.
That's right. However, unfortunately, here in Indonesia, according to Statistics Indonesia, or BPS, based on gender comparisons, the participation rate of female workers available in the domestic labor market is approximately 55%, which is lower than men, which is at around 83.19%. Not only that, though, the participation rate of women in the tech industry here in Indonesia is only at a dismal 22%. And this figure is unfortunately slowly shrinking.
Now, is it a surprise? Is it not a surprise? What are exactly the obstacles that women could possibly face in this particular industry, and how do they break these barriers and stigma in the tech industry? We're now going to find the answer right here with Duran Pay co-founder Withnatasha Ardiani. It's good to have you here. Thank you so much for coming.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
So you have been around in the tech industry for a while before setting up your own company. So if you can enlighten us, why, in your experience, are there so few women only recorded in this particular industry, working in this particular industry?
Right. So I generally agree that there's obviously not enough women in tech, and not just in tech, it's actually across industries, corporates as well. As you rightly said, like the women participation in tech in Indonesia is only at 22%, and the figures is shrinking as you move up the corporate ladder, right? The more senior leadership positions. In terms of women and funding in tech, women founders, there are around, should be around 50 women-led companies in Indonesia. But only, around 10 out of these 50 received Series B funding the past 7 years. So obviously the number is not high enough. And I think, representation matters. And I think there's, a simplified view of why there aren't enough women is because there's lack of women in leadership roles that perpetuates the myth that women aren't as good decision maker and business person as men.
So it's not actually a lack of interest. It's not the lack of interest.
I don't think so.
So yeah, I do have to agree with you when you say that, representation is everything, because when there is a woman there, you know that it's possible to get there.
Yeah.
It's possible.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's it was surprising to me as well as to the lack of opportunities, because I would think that tech is a more level playing field as opposed to something
As
more
progressive as it is.
laborious. Exactly. So, in your experience, what are some of the obstacles for women that you run into in this industry?
Well, I think I would categorize the obstacles to be structural and also non-structural, or more social. So the structural being, for example, right? Women have or get 3 months of maternity leave.
Yes.
Right.
Men only get few days.
Okay.
This sort of perpetuates or amplifies that okay, women should take care of the newborn and men aren't given an equal opportunity to do so. So this kind of, structural, right? And the non-structural ones are there's this bias, discrimination, pay gaps, and all these things. There's this perception that men should be paid more because they take care of the family, and it's okay to pay women less. So I think generally these are some of the issues that we face. I think across industries, not just tech.
So it's basically treating women as if this is going to be secondary income for the family.
Yeah.
Well, actually, it's a good point about the maternity. Why is there no paternity leave? Because when we had our first child, I was the one at home taking care of the kids.
Correct,
My wife that was working at the
Yeah.
time. So good point. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly is also interesting from the structural point of view that you've mentioned. It's lack of inclusivity, that's a lack of balance.
Outdated a little bit.
Yeah, and it's very surprising because I actually, as a dual income family, I just bumped into that particular structure when I decided to file my taxes.
Yeah.
And it's so different for women, right?
Yes.
And we pay, we pay different amount of taxes than men do, even if we work just as hard as the men in the family. We get a bigger cut, and that's the structural issue.
Right.
So I wanted to ask, is there a lot of stigma about women in the tech industry? And in your opinion, how can you avoid these or set the record straight?
Right. So I think I'd like to share from my own experience at Ardiani Pay. So there are 3 co-founders. There's 1 male and 2 female, and we're always at the same page when it comes to building an inclusive workplace.
Yes.
Because we believe that we will, or any industry will benefit for from inclusivity, inclusion and diversity. So we have like some of the, some written rules and we have some unwritten rules. The written rules, for example, we enforce menstrual leave day. So
Yes, thank you.
it's there if you take it. If it's not mandatory, right? But it's there if you want to take it. Second is that we enforce the same amount as paternity leave as a maternity leave.
Great.
Yeah. So then we want to give our male employees the same opportunity, as our women employees to take care of the newborn. Third is like zero tolerance policy because we want to create like a safe workspace for everyone. Fourth is upskilling. So we budget for courses, lessons and stuff. And then interestingly at Durian Pay, and for both men and women, right? And interestingly at Durian Pay, the budget is absorbed more by women than men. Yeah, and then lastly is essentially a hybrid work policy. So like you can work from anywhere, but usually the teams or function, they make a point to meet physically on a weekly or bi-weekly basis. But it gives flexibility to everyone. And the unwritten policy being we try to hire women as whenever possible. Because if we want more women in the industry or more women leaders in general, we need to increase the top of the funnel supply, right?
That's right. Yeah, you have to give them the experience necessary to be able to make it up there.
Yeah. Basically, I would say that those are all great policies to be put in place. Now, let's talk a little bit about you yourself. You're now a COO and you're also a co-founder of Durian Pay. You basically dedicated your life to tech and startup. Could you tell us a little bit about your background? How did you get into it? Is this something that you shifted into, or is it something that you have a background in? And what was the approach like, and what were some of the challenges that you encountered? So perhaps to serve as inspiration for those out there.
Right. So my academic background is from public policy and economics. I actually used to work for the government.
Is that right?
At the president's office between 2012 and 2015. And then I pursued a master's degree in the US. And then subsequent to that, I joined C Limited, which is a parent company of Shopee and C Bank. And then after that, like I moved around like to OVO, and then this essentially. So I'm a career shifter. And why I joined tech is because I think tech is essentially an industry which is like high impact and high growth.
Yeah.
Like I learn something new every day, or the industry is like changing. So I think there's a lot of opportunities in the space. There's a lot of white space. So I think that's what makes it interesting.
Now, just a follow up to this. The prior companies you were at, I mean, you have a different position, obviously, at Durian Pay as the co-founder. What were some of the challenges that you personally experienced being at some of the larger companies where you perhaps weren't at the very top?
Right. So obviously you need to like set up everything from scratch, right?
Yes.
From like filing your deeds of establishment, getting licenses, this and that, setting up BPGS for your employees, like filing taxes, just to make sure that everything accounted for properly. Because right now, like even if we're a startup, right? Like we put governance first because that's like how the industry is right now. So I think essentially you bootstrap, you do everything yourself. And whereas like in bigger companies, they're sort of like established pretty much.
Right.
So I think that's one of the biggest change.
Okay. Did you have any difficulties like knowing that my role as a woman doing all this myself? Were you looked upon differently when you had to start everything for yourself?
No, not really.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
really.
that part, at least it's an equal playing field
Yes.
from your personal experience.
Yes.
Right.
My follow-up question to that would be, having gone through, working as an employee in bigger tech companies and now setting up your own, as a woman, what were the things that you learned from these experiences that you wanted to make sure that it is set up in your own company?
Right. So I think there's a lot of, because we have investors, right? And they usually have like some playbook, some know-how, of like some of the things that you need to pay attention to for like an early startup. So learn from like there's a global benchmark, there's a domestic benchmark. So generally, I think it's pretty much the same between like I don't think it's like a male or women or male or female specific issue. I think it's like just generally like it's like a starting like more like a starting company type of like challenge or issue. Yeah.
What do you think in terms of mentoring? Did you had going through all of these, bigger companies, did you have the opportunity to have mentors? And I heard that you're now also part of a mentoring organization
Yes.
that mentors women in various industries as well.
Yes.
If you could share how mentoring perhaps impacts the future, or how it has impacted you if you've been through that as well.
Yeah, I'm sure you've heard of Women Empower Women.
Yeah.
So that's essentially that, right? So mentoring is also a way to, channel your, experience and wisdom. so I think because the more, when for example, I'm a career shifter, and then I went through some things, and probably there are other people out there that went through the same thing. So I think we just generally want to give a space for, more women to be able to, take the decision, or take a different decision, or have the courage to do so.
Now, seeing as you have such an extensive background in this industry, what would you have to say to women who just are starting out, or are wanting or interested in starting out in this industry? What do they need to prepare? What sort of mindset do they need to have?
Well, I think generally, or in tech, right, be adaptive, be open-minded, seek help. There is a lot of help out there, actually. You can learn from books, yes, but there's also mentoring, reach out through LinkedIn. Don't do. LinkedIn is, like I said, it's a social network, but it's also a professional networking platform, right? So then, ask specific questions, ask thoughtful questions. I feel like I really don't mind answering them when I get them, So, don't do, okay, how are you, blah, blah. Maybe not how are you, but if you have some questions in mind that are specific to, say, my experience, or something that I can help you with, I'm super open.
And you don't mind doing that, right? Just replying.
Yeah, and I think most women don't, or from my experience, I think willing to share. Yeah.
But most people do not know that those people are approachable.
Yeah, I wouldn't either. A little worried. Yeah, a little intimidated.
Exactly. But it's good to know that there are a lot of very empowering and approachable women like you who, who drive this seat as well, opening doors for more women to come in. Now, last but not least, what, according to you, currently is a trend for the most seeked out jobs in tech, specifically good for women?
I generally think, women or men shouldn't be defined by their gender when applying for jobs, be it at finance, tech, product management, operations. So I think they just need to apply on what they're interested and passionate about. Yeah, I've worked with women CFO, engineer, or COO, CEO. So I think, all works out.
Like you said, keep an open mind and be adaptive, right?
Women can do everything.
Thank you so much for your time and for coming in.
Right, thank you.
All
Thanks
the
for
best
having
of luck with Durian Pay as well. Continue to be
you.
prosperous as well. We know I didn't know until we spoke before we got on air that Durian Pay was birthed right at the beginning of the pandemic.
Oh, wow.
It continues to grow.
And
There you
yeah,
go.
and I actually thought when I heard durian pay, wait, does it have anything to do with durian? Because we love
No, it's not how you pay for durian.
Yeah, I know. I know.
Anyway, once again, thank you, Natasha.
Thank you,
And,
Natasha.
drop by anytime. All right, guys, we're going to take another short break here on the program. But in case you did join us late, don't worry. We're going to recap some of our earlier stories from around the world when we return. Stay with us.